No, I got him on the right way. Welcome, everybody, back to another post-game show. We are here with Lions Giants. Lions win it 34-27 in overtime to get to 7-4 on the season. They continue their winning off of a loss streak that continues to roll along. I think it's the longest in the NFL now, and it's been for I think it's 14, which is fantastic. A must win type of game. That was the scenario, and it was here's what kind of the thing that I laid out all week, and I want to start here first before we get into the craziness because this thing was ugly. All right, I'm not going to sit here and tell you this was a pretty football game. It was not, but it was a win, and that's what matters. But I do want to start here. I called this a get right game early on Bleacher Report through the week, and the reason I called it that was because I felt that a lot of the things that Philly challenged us with, the Giants would, and kind of just at a lesser level. And I don't want to make that sound disrespectful, but that's kind of the vibe that I got, where it was like, hey man, they got a good defensive front, they can get a lot of pressure. So we're going to be challenged in that way. Offensive line wise, are they great up front? Maybe they're not elite, but man, they're pretty darn good. They don't got a lot of weaknesses. Their tackle play has been really good this season. They got people movers. And really, I think we started to feel that towards the second half. The way that they were creating movement up front, the way that they were getting downhill against us, rushing the football. So we started to feel that as the game rolled along, leaning on that offensive line. In terms of for the Lions offensively, and we felt this in the good and bad, weapons wise, we had to go win. Guys had to win one-on-ones because the Giants were going to test us in the sense that it was going to be a lot of one-on-ones. Now, that was slightly different, I think, than Philadelphia because Philadelphia-wise would play a lot more too deep, though they came into that game and said, hey, bro, playing single high, we're playing cover three. So they gave us that challenge. But this was a team, the Giants, that would do that all the time, and they would challenge you one-on-one. They'd say, who's going to win? But the reason I thought that was a get right game is because if you watch watching the Lions Philly game, it was, man, nobody's winning. When we need the most, St. Brown incomplete, Goff missed throw, J-Mo incomplete. Like it was Tesla drop pass, maybe a blown block in a big spot. It was a ton of that over and over and over. Just like when we needed most, nobody made a play. And the Giants were going to test us because just schematically speaking, they were going to make you prove that you could go win one-on-one. And we saw some, and we saw their occasions where we did it. Now, I will say the Giants on that last drive, just for watching it live, kind of like initially what pops in my mind, it did feel like they played kind of soft in coverage, which makes sense for the game situation. But because they did that, the Lions took advantage of it. Goff took advantage of it and just fed St. Brown and Jameer Gibbs underneath, and he walked us down the field in the field goal range. Now, it was ugly how it finished, but up to that point, the first time they got aggressive, I believe it may have been that play where we swung it out to Gibbs and we lost 5 yards. I mean, up until that point, it was like, hey, we're going to play pretty soft coverage, soft zone coverage. They're going to kind of give us stuff. So that was the first time maybe it kind of opened up for us a little bit better. But for the most part, a lot of the ways that Philadelphia challenged us and we struggled was going to be the case in this game. And here's the thing, right? Because I understand it, right? There's going to be disappointment like, yo, hey, man, you played Giants close. Look, I get it. But Giants played a lot of teams close. I'm not here to argue that that was a good football game because it wasn't. But I'm here to tell you that you had to win the football game. Philadelphia just won in overtime, right? Versus Indianapolis. Now, Indianapolis, they look great. But they had to win a close game because they've lost all of them to this point and are sitting at 5-5 and are questioning whether or not they're going to make the playoffs. The NFL, a lot of times, unfortunately, it comes down to who wins the close games. Who wins the one-score games? Most games are one score. Who wins those? And the Lions just felt like they haven't been coming through in those spots, and they finally did against the Giants. And they did it in a game that was not pretty. And it doesn't make me like long-term, like, oh man, I'm so optimistic after this game because man, we got back on track. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it was, hey man, we had to find a way in an ugly spot to win. Minnesota, it was ugly. We lost. Could have won that game. We lost it, right? We give it the big completion at the end, don't get another shot. Philadelphia last week, as bad as it gets. We lost. It was that over and over and over. It's like, man, when we play bad and you could tell it's not going well, we just lose the football game. We had to win one like that. It's just life in the NFL. I mean, the Packers just saw it a week ago against Green Bay, right? It's like, this is like, I mean, against the Giants too. It's life in the NFL, bro. And look, I'll give the Giants some credit before we get into the plays. Jameis Winston, dude should have been playing for this team. Jameis Winston can absolutely throw the ball. And this is not just based on this game alone. This is based on what I've seen coming in this one, man. He's a smart player, dude. He gets him in the right spot. Did we allow way too much? 100%. Broken plays, big explosives left and right. Guys getting behind us because we're selling out to play the run. Safety stepping down. We're blitzing. Oh, there's a big chunk play. Maybe not the best plan. I'll be honest with you. Maybe not the best plan. But they found a way to get it done. And that's what mattered because, man, early in this game, the story was the players that we're paying are not making plays. Saints dropping the ball. J-Mo's dropping the ball. I mean, even late. If we lose that game because they go down and score a touchdown, think about it. If they kick a field goal, we might lose this game. If they go down and score that, if they go down and score a touchdown there, let's say they end it. We're looking back saying, dude, we went 3-0 after an interception. The guy that came through was Thomas freaking Harper. He's the guy that gave us a shot, and it right off of J-Mill's hands. Closes his eyes right off his hands, and we lose like that. And you're walking away like, what in the world? These are the guys that we've invested in. And for me, it's kind of the battle of, like there's times where you can second guess decision making and things like that. And I think that's fair. But there's also the element of like, dude, if you're going to invest in these guys, then anytime you put the ball in their hands, I'm typically not that upset with it because like you invested in them for a reason. You put your confidence in for a reason. So you can live and die by whatever happens when you give them the opportunity. And early, looked like we were going to lose by that. But when it mattered late, we found a way, and it wasn't pretty at all. I'm just glad we found a way. We're going to walk through this because it wasn't pretty. I will say this, though. One of the biggest things that does step in my mind, I see all in the chat. Shout out to everybody listening right now. I'm trying to hear Brad Holmes set the team up for failure. No moves at deadline is nasty. Hutch in over game-ending sack. Beautiful game-ending sack. Shot to Aleem. Literally took the guard and said, here you go. He gave him to the quarterback. Said, here, take this with you. Take this with you back to New York, buddy. You know what I mean? There you go. But I do want to give credit to the offensive line. Probably not named KO today, and I don't want to make that sound like, that sounds messed up when I say it like that. But realistically, like we didn't really feel anything from Abdul Carter or Brian Burns. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't have wins, but watching the game live, you didn't really notice them that much. I mean, at times a little bit like late, he got Decker gave up the win to Abdul Carter, and it forced a miss to Isaac Tesla on the comeback route. That was one example, but they definitely weren't dominant by any means. Part of that was situationally. I think we did a pretty solid job, but even when we needed it, I felt like our pass pro was more than good enough for what this game was and what you knew coming in you were going to be up against. I'm actually okay with that. I'm actually okay with the way that they performed. Graham obviously had a monstrous block that led to Gibbs popping it for a huge touchdown, one of them. Like, I was pretty pleased with it because it didn't feel like we were, oh goodness, we are on our heels all game long against these guys. It didn't feel like that. It actually felt like, okay, we're doing fine. And if there is something where we're going to knock down like, oh, it was too close, we played the Giants stuff. Well, let's also flip the positive. Giants came into this game, and I thought they were way better run defense than this, especially with what they have up front. I don't think their linebacker position is that great. But they were allowing what? The highest EPA rushing the football, the most explosive plays at 45 this year. And what the Lions found was they found explosive plays. They found explosives in the run. Gibbs went for 219. So not only did they meet the expectation of you should have an explosive run against these team, which I believe is 15 yards, they did like 3 times. Multiple times, boom, 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 and it was a difference in the game. It was Jahmyr Gibbs was a difference in the game because of that. So they did get that element out of it, right? That was on the table that they were capable of doing to these guys, and they did just that. So that part was huge. That part was important. DJ Reed also felt pretty good to have him back. Felt pretty good outside of the one at the end, which is unfortunately what's sticking in my mind now. Made some good plays, but dude, that one at the end was not good, right? James Winston threw up a punt, first down. But this game had all the writings of you should lose this football game. And yet they found a way to win. Let's talk about it all. Let's dive into it. We got a lot to go through. 7-4. It feels good. I'm going to be honest. It feels pretty good. Like, as ugly as it was, I mean, almost in a way of like, hey, man, if you would have blown them out, does it feel as good as this? I don't know. It's kind of nice, man. Just be like, dude, we just won one of those. Like, we were not, like, everything was telling you were supposed to lose that football game, and they won. It feels good. It's like, dude, yeah, dude, we're here. And now Thanksgiving, like, it's everything. This race is going to be massive, but especially seeing that the other 2 teams won, we had to get this one done. Chad, I see y'all. Let's get into this. Let's go through this game. Gibbs runs tamed bums. Okay, I see you. Little rhyme in there. Abdul, he got to develop still. He does. But Abdul's tough, man. Abdul's tough. I thought he was tough coming into this game. You know what I mean? He had a good play late. He was about a second off from blowing something up. We also are really missing Joseph and TA. We're definitely missing. Well, we felt that with Amik Robertson today. He got beat a couple times. He also made some big plays for us. Got to give him credit. Like, he came through, made a massive play. That big pass breakup towards the end there where he kind of just undercut it. That was huge. Dropped a couple of interceptions as well, but he made some good plays. Obviously got beat a couple times. Just kind of cooked one-on-one. As for Kirby Joseph, like, we saw Thomas Harper bite, but we've seen that from Kirby too. It's not like Kirby Joseph is perfect in terms of like, oh, Kirby Joseph doesn't bite on anything. He just disciplined. Like, Kirby, he's had issues with that in the past where he would get a little undisciplined, but I got to give it to Thomas Harper, man. He pulled a Kirby Joseph. He bounced back. I mean, he gave us an interception. He handed us the ball down by 3 and said, go win it. And we didn't. Not there. But he did. He jumped it. I think they recovered 3. He stepped down on the over route and took it away. Like, hey, I gotta give him his flowers, man. Like, Thomas Harper's been really good up to this point, and he came through. He bounced back. It was about bouncing back today. Let's start it off because defensively, it started off, and this was really what it was, right? And this was perfect that Calvin Shepard said this throughout the week, where he was like, the explosive plays are what leads to touchdowns. When we don't give up explosives, we don't give up touchdowns. He said we only had 3 drives this year coming into this game that was a touchdown that didn't include an explosive play. Well, they feasted on those. And it started off like this. The run defense was pretty good to get things started. You get them into 3rd down and 7. Hutchinson jumps offside, so now all of a sudden it's 3rd down and 2. That opens up the opportunity for the flea flicker, which turns into the touchdown, which is also set up by the fact that Ali McNeil missed a sack. And Thomas Harper dives. Amik Robertson's not looking on the backside. He has no vision on the backside. And it picks up this big shot play, and they're walking into the end zone. So you have that happens. And yes, I do agree. It would be nice to see Miles Frazier. I do wonder about it a little bit. Because on paper, I think, you have to see Miles Frazier. And I think Miles Frazier could be a long-term starter. But the fact that we haven't seen him, I don't really know where to put him. It's just based on LSU. And at LSU, I thought this guy could be a starter in the NFL. I'm hoping that they get to the point this year where they feel comfortable with giving him a shot, because I think you can upgrade there, clearly. I think you can upgrade beyond Mahogany so far this season. But I think you can upgrade over clearly what K.O. looked like he was the shakiest today. That may not be true, but it felt like that watching it live. Like it looked pretty shaky behind K.O. And I felt like we did a lot behind the right side of the O-line rushing the football as well, especially a lot of the explosives felt like that as well. The rainbow ball, Jameis threw, Kirby would have been there. You might be right on that. You might be right on that. You might be right on that. Just having the feel for it. Yeah. That's true. That's true. But I'll give him his love, man. For being a backup, like Thomas Harper stepped in, dude. I like Thomas Harper. I'd like to keep him around. I like to keep this guy around for a while. Let's continue. Let's go to the offense side. So after that goofiness happens, right, they score their touchdown. Offensively, we had to punt after moving the ball well, right? We came out, we ran the football well, a stretch run, a counter run. We go to kind of that full house look. We get up to Brock, pick up a first down. We go to the swing pass, a couple, and then we go back to Gibbs, toss play, 12 yards, 3 yards. And what killed our drive was the absolute opposite. Was Lions go out there, first drive, right? They're moving the ball, they're running the ball well. What beats it? Well, they blitz on 2nd and long, which is their tendency. We saw that when we kind of charted it out. It's 2nd down and 7+, which is what I tout is 2nd and long. They are a lot of cover 1 and a lot of blitzing, and they did just that. So I think it was linebacker that came through. Gibbs doesn't hit the block at all. And because of that, Goff slides out of it, quickly throws it to Brock. Brock drops it. Okay. So now all of a sudden, we're in a 3rd down and 7 at this point, and then we get sacked. KO gets cooked immediately by Darius Alexander. So you're at that point. And look, I'll say I thought Goff actually moved the pocket pretty well today. Was he perfect throwing the ball? No, but I actually thought he moved the pocket, moved within the pocket pretty well today. There was a couple of times where I definitely wish he would have gotten rid of the ball, but in terms of just straight pure pocket movement and keeping his eyes downfield, I think over time he's actually developed a lot there for the Lions. And he's gotten a lot better over time there for the Lions, where there's a much better feel with his footwork, where things don't feel as sloppy. When he moves, you feel like he's still in the play. It feels like there's still something to it. I mean, even the scramble that he had, which, by the way, I think he ran out of bounds a yard short, which is crazy work. But we get called for a holding on that touchdown drive. Like, that was fine. I would take that. But that's how your first drive gets shut out, So now let's get back to it defensively. Defense does their thing. A couple of run stops in a row. Hodgins, incomplete. DJ Reed's doing his thing in coverage. Bam, we get back at it. What'd you watch today? You watched a W, bro. You watched a W today. That's what I'm taking from it. Let's continue. So defense does thing. Offense gets back out there. And again, think about this, right? We come out first run. We run it to Gibbs, loses 3 yards. Okay, 2nd and 13. Very next play, it's a first down. We're going to cross midfield. St. Brown drops it. This was a drop. There's no way around it. He threw it in breaker. St. Brown's open. He's contested. And this is the exact plays like this were exactly what we were talking about during the week, which was the Lions were going to have to win one-on-ones. And honestly, our coordinator said it. John Morton said it. Like, we have to win one-on-ones. This was a one-on-one. He dropped it. Okay, now it's 3rd down and 13, or 2nd down and 13. Now you check it down and you're punting. And maybe some of those spots you'd be like, oh, hold the ball longer. Obviously, I don't know what he's seeing during some of those plays. Maybe he could have stood in a little bit longer, but he got off it maybe a little bit quicker and he kind of just got it out and we just moved on. Obviously, not wanting to live there and take the sacks. And some of that did help the offensive line. Which is a credit. Some of it did help the offensive line. And again, I'm actually okay with our offensive line today for a lot of it. Outside of KO. I thought KO was a little bit shaky. But that, that's one where it's like, okay, I get it. We'll do that. We'll keep it moving. So that kills a drive. Now, 2 drives. First two drives, 2 drops, destroy the drive. Right? That's not to say the negative didn't have an impact, but you had a play there to continue the drive and you didn't. Then we get back on the offense side of the ball. And again, we're playing the run pretty well early. Clearly, we're having some emphasis to stop the run because we're blitzing to stop the run. 2 yards. Amik Robertson gets beat by Wandale on the big out route. Then they get the big shot play. And this is where you knew early the Lions were intentionally saying, we got to focus on the run. And honestly, I don't hate this. Like, if you told me coming into the game, if I'm the defensive mind and you're like, hey, man, you got like a couple buttons you can push. You can push the button of, hey, we're going to sell out for the pass. You know how in Madden they do that goofy thing where it's like, well, set your game plan or something. You know what I mean? Where it's like, how do you want to, prepare medium pass, short pass, long pass to run? I would have came in saying, hey, you got to take away the run. Like, I know we played it well, but you got to, because from the games that I've charted, like, they are super run heavy, like incredibly run heavy. So I get that. And actually, it worked until you get the shot play, I guess. And that's 1st and 10. I believe they were in quarters. And you got Wan'Dale Robinson running behind the defense. They clear out, run behind the defense. Brian Branch steps down to play the run. They get behind him, and he can't get back into the play. That said, too, here's where I want to give the Giants credit. This is something I do think they did well. I think that offensively, they've done a really good job. And I also have these plays. I can show you on the screen. We did a graphic of it. Based on the coverage they've gotten this season, from the games that I watched with Jameis, they've done a really good job of getting into concepts that have made sense to beat the coverage. Like, okay, we got cover 6. Here's the play they run. You're like, oh, that's a good beater. Right today, they had that cover 4 play. They ran the wheel routes. Like, oh, that made a lot of sense. That was a smart play. They have a lot of that. So I'll give them that credit. Because they lean into the run, I think is a big part of it. But they also do a really good job of finding a way to have a good play set up for what they're getting in coverage. That is one thing that I think carried over to this game that you were able to see when you were kind of just going through in preparation for it. So that's the first big one that it leads to. Then you get the 2-yard run after this. So again, a lot of that early was good before they hit that corner route. And that's when they kind of looked at that weird quad looks. I don't remember what we were doing on that one, to be honest with you. Then a 3-yard run, a 2-yard run, and then they throw it away. So again, to this point, every run's been 3 yards or less, which is good. But you could see there was an emphasis to dealing with that. Defensively, I think Aleem isn't looking. I haven't thought Aleem's looked like himself since he's gotten back. I thought last week was his best week. That it wasn't great, but I thought it was his best week. He started to get some pressure, and I think that's the reason I thought that he was getting back to himself, because he was getting after it a little bit. This week, I think we felt him there. He got upfield a little bit. You felt a little bit of pressure. Outside of that, I don't really know, to be honest with you. I can say I think he didn't miss tackles. Last week he missed 2 tackles. He didn't do that this week, I don't think. Maybe, no, he missed the first sack. Take that back. He might have missed 2 tackles again. But I don't know. It felt similar to last week. I guess I'll get a better sense when I'm watching back, but it felt similar to last week. Like, it's definitely not the Aleem that I think of when Aleem's at his best, but it feels like it's kind of trending the right direction based on last week and maybe a little bit of this week, but it's just not his normal self yet. Not yet. Hopefully he gets there. So again, defense doing a good job to this point, stopping the run. It's just a couple explosives that we talked about. Offense gets back out there, and this is when we end up scoring the touchdown, which was kind of a weird drive all over the place, right? The check down picks up 20. You go check it down to Monty, which is one of the better movements by Goff in the pocket. Slides out. KO loses his block. Boom. We go positive again. We're just staying on top. 4-yard run. You hit the curl to St. Brown, which was a really good ball. St. Brown again. They get called for the PI in the back of the end zone. We almost stalled out at the 1-yard line, which was disgusting. We almost did, but we ended up scoring the touchdown on the tunnel screen. We was 3rd and goal from the 11. There's another example of just putting ourselves in a bad spot. They threw the intentional grounding on us, which about killed that drive. Just throwing the intentional grounding when he got out of the pocket and just threw it out of the back of the end zone. He had the flat, but he threw it out of the back of the end zone, and that called grounding. We get backed up. We get the tunnel screen that punches it in. Shout out to the screens coming through, because it did in that spot. He actually got caught looking ahead. I don't know, because if I said that, I think it'd be unfair, because I would say that based on last week. Like, last week, we were ugly executing. You know what I mean? So I think you could say it, but I also don't want to give him that out, because I feel like this week a lot of the ugly stuff was still there. And we, just like last week, we had explosives too. It's just that this time we came through and won the game, which was why it matters so much. But it kind of was like last week in a lot of ways, where it's like, hey, dude, we're doing a lot of dumb things. We're still getting explosives offensively. There's not efficiency, because we're not playing efficient football, for whatever reason. And I think they did the same thing against Philly, to be honest with you. They just lost that game. They had a shot to win that one. They just lost it, but it was kind of the same idea. So let's flip it. Let's flip it back to I just don't want to give him that, because I feel like that makes it sound as if it's like that's the only issue, and I don't want to do that, because that's not. They've done it now for 2 weeks in a row. Flip it back to the defense side of the ball. Hey, give some special teams love. Tyrus Wheat, I put him down there. He had a good stop on kickoff return. But like I said, hey, Rick, hey, I see the Jameis stuff. Like I said, man, Jameis films was good. Like, I didn't watch every game that Jameis has played. You know what I mean? But I've watched the ones that he's played this year, and his film was good. Like, it was. You can watch it, come back, tell me I'm wrong, but it was good. And you knew he could push the ball. The thing was this was going to be the balance. It was, if Jackson Dart plays, you're going to get more running quarterback. You're going to get a guy that probably has more designed runs, maybe more broken plays, though Jameis did add that in this game. But the Lions have handled that pretty well, right? Quarterbacks that have taken off and ran this year, and that's kind of their thing. They haven't really given us a problem, which has been great. But then you watch Jameis, like, all right, you may not get as much of that, but this dude's going to fire some passes now. He's gonna throw some in some windows, and then he threw the pick, which was a bad throw, so that was kind of a Jameis play. But outside of that, like, he would make good throws. Gas Green Bay, he did to Green Bay. He did the same thing to Green Bay, and then he missed some throws. He fired some out of there because he just missed at the end. We kind of missed some of the ending there with the Wandale throw, but that was Jameis Winston. That's kind of what he is, to be honest with you. Defensively, let's get back there. The first big play, right? And this is like, it goes to his stats, but it's not really anything Jameis did. I think we were in 2 deep. We were covered forward. We blitzed out of it. We don't have anybody underneath. He just checks it down and picks up 40 yards. Like, that's nothing special. That's what we're doing defensively. If anything, it's just them executing against what we're doing defensively, picks up 40 yards. Because then after that play, they do an end around, which goes for nothing. Nothing. They got the run going a little bit because we were so aggressive to play the run. So some of the single gap stuff ended up popping. But again, for the most part, it's good. 12-yard run, but then a 2-yard run. Hutch stopped it on the zone read. Then an incomplete pass that was covered up well by Meek Robertson. And then they ended up scoring a touchdown on like a 3rd down and long where they got, and again, it was a good scheme thing. And I think the big thing that was worth mentioning there was that the fact that they went out there offensively, saw our defense, called a timeout, ran the play that beat the coverage that we were in. And I don't remember the play before what we were in before they called the timeout, but I got to believe we were showing the exact same look. So whether they called the timeout, they just said, okay, this is what we're getting. Because what the Lions ran in that spot is nothing new. They run that all the time in the red zone. Like that coverage they run in the red zone is something they run all the time. And if anything, I think you walk away from this game as your Calvin Shepard and say, okay, maybe we weren't as unpredictable enough. We were too predictable in this game. I think that's the biggest thing. And I don't think every team puts that challenge on you. For whatever reason, the Giants kind of do. Now, Giants do have good offensive minds. Brian Daboll was good offensive mind. Mike Kafka, who's now their guy, he was with the Chiefs. He's good offensive mind. So maybe that's something we can give some credit to there. They seem to be pretty prepared, but that was good. Like, I give it to them. If anything, for our side, maybe there had to be more disguises that were there because it was a little bit too straightforward. And obviously, as you saw, with how straightforward we were, we just started leaning man heavy, and that actually led to the best results for us. Let's continue though. Let's go back to the offense side of the ball. Because, again, we come out, run the ball well, 6 yards, 5 yards, and then what happens? Well, J-Mo drops back-to-back passes. So, again, now this is the third drive we're talking about drops. It just ends it, right? He drops the little hitch underneath. That would have been 5 yards. And we curled over to him in the middle of the field. He drops that one. And now we're 3rd and 10, and we get sacked. Well, you could see where the sacks were coming from. It was 3rd and long. But 2 drops in a row, that shuts down the drive. And then we're back to it offensively. Or defensively, defense ends up getting off the field. They get that short yardage stuff on 3rd down to end up getting off the field. Let me see what the chat's talking about real quick. 3 inches away and an open route being 6 and 5. But we're not. You know what I mean? Like, we're not. We're 7 and 4, man. Look, dude, I'd be honest with you, and I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like, you just got to win games, dude. Because like I said, the NFL to me is definitely not one of these things where it's like, well, if you beat this team, then that means you'd beat this team because this team beat that team. It's one of those. It's not one of those things in the NFL, and we can see that, right? I mean, the Browns beat the Packers. They don't look like they can win a football game. The Browns look horrendous, but that's life in the NFL, right? Every game's unique. Every game's different. So just win the one that you're playing at this point. Like I said, we won 15 last year. So if this really mattered, we should have won the Super Bowl last year because we won 15 games with injuries. We lost in the playoffs, but you walked away from that game, and I didn't blame it on injuries. I blame it on the fact that offensively or defensively, our plan was terrible. Like, we had an awful plan in the playoffs. So that game uniquely, and again, there was some wild stuff that went on in that game. That's why the NFL playoffs was so nuts. But it's like, that's just how it is, man. Just find a way in that game. Now, the concerns, you can look at long-term concerns of, like, is there an issue that's repeatable that keeps showing up? Like, do we believe St. Brown's going to keep dropping passes? I don't, but he has. So that needs to be cleaned up. Same with Jameson. He needs to prove that to me. I think the one that you could look at as the most consistent concern to me is KO'd at left guard. It's the left guard just in general, because, I mean, we're dealing with right now. And until Miles Frazier steps in and takes that drop, or we go to Tristan Colon, we haven't showed that we actually have another answer. Mahogany wasn't even another answer for us, even if at some point he comes back this year. So that's still legitimate concern. But then defensively, like, I was happy with the defense up until this week. And again, it was the explosives that we gave up. But as Calvin said, like, that's what has given up touchdowns this year. I was actually pretty happy with it all the way up since the Kansas City game. I thought we've done a lot of good on defense. We've actually just leaned on the defense to keep us in games. And this is the first time they didn't. So, I mean, they did at the end. They got it done at the end. But this is the first time it was like, this thing looks a little bit shaky. And because we're getting healthier there, like, for the most part, there isn't a spot on the defense where I'm like, dude, cornerback, we're terrible. Like, I don't feel like that, especially when you got Reed coming back, who I thought played pretty well outside of the one at the end, and you got TA coming back. Like, I don't really feel like that. And then, maybe Kirby at some point, but even Thomas Harper bounced back for him. The defensive line, I still feel pretty good about it. Now you can question, do we have enough dogs up front? Well, shoot, Lee McNeil better get there. Because if you who's your number 2 rusher? It's Lee McNeil. You paid him $20+ million a year. That's your number 2 rusher. Now it's fair to say it's going to take a minute coming off an ACL, but that's who it is. So the flash plays need to become more consistent. So that's where I think you point to the long-term stuff. But that said, we'll go back to the offense. The offense ends up scoring a touchdown off of that. And again, running the ball well, pitch play, duo, and then the duo pops for 40 yards before we just immediately go back out there to Gibbs. We floated to him, and he walks into the end zone. So I would say that's probably the most consistent thing to take away from this game is we did run the ball really well, and it typically led to the touchdown drives. We created explosives through the run game, which is something that Giants were prone to give up, but they did run the ball really well. So I'll give them that. At least that showed up. And honestly, that should get some love because a lot of this season has actually been that's not been what we're used to. Like as Lions fans, we're used to the Lions' ability to run the football against almost everybody. It would be rare when we couldn't. Like you get like Tampa Bay and it'd be like, oh, we don't look like we can run the ball that much. But it was rare. This year it hasn't looked as rare. It's looked more like, oh, there's some games we don't run the ball that well. Monty hasn't got going at all. He still hasn't really gotten going. But at very least, Gibbs cooked. At very least, Gibbs cooked today. We got it going. We leaned on it when we should have been able to, and we did. Defensively, a 3-yard run given up. You get called for DPI on Rocky Sin. So, again, he handled the run well. You get called for a DPI. They had a beater for cover 3 because now, we're sitting that cover 4. We changed it up. We're playing the run. You hit that cover 3. They hit the flood. Boom. That gets us for a big gain. They end up picking 3 more yards on the drag play, which you'll take. They brought it. We play 2-man. We get pressure. He throws it away. And then you get the incomplete pass where Harper covers up in man coverage once again. He covers up the deep post that was just kind of thrown to nowhere. So, again, defensively did their thing. The one thing that happened on that drive was the one little shot play that they hit, which was a beater for the coverage that we were in. And this, I don't know if I want to point to this as a concern or not, but it's something that's worth looking at is Lions finding consistent success was clearly just leaning heavy into man, not zone. We saw that. I feel like Glasgow has hurt us worse. I don't think so, man. I think Glasgow's calmed the waters a bit. Like, again, I'm not getting a dominant Glasgow. Here's how I look at it. I don't get Glasgow's not going to dominate consistently. He's going to have losses, but it could be a lot worse. Like, I would take Glasgow's play at both guard positions for the entire year. I would absolutely take that if we would have had that from jump. I think Glasgow's been at the very least mostly steady. And I thought this game he was pretty steady. This is how I kind of broke down we were live. Tate, right guard, super shaky early in the year. Messy. Since then, we really haven't heard much of Tate Ratledge. He's actually been pretty darn good. Left guard, now with the injury, really shaky. But I'm okay with Graham. Like, I think Graham's at a level where it's, if Graham's your best offensive lineman, you're in trouble, right? You're not going to be moving anybody around. So your guard play has to be good. But you've at least invested in that to get there. Your tackle play has to be really good, which I think it was today. I didn't feel like Penei Sewell had a lot of lost blocks. He had a couple last week. Decker had 1. But I feel like those guys played to what they were getting paid versus going up against some of the best. I thought they were pretty darn good. They lived up to that. Graham Glasgow has to be that piece. He just has to be a guy that's just, steady. That's all we need from him, I think. And that's all you can realistically expect from him, I think, for the most part. If he's just steady, you got a chance. If he's your best, you're in trouble. We'll continue on. We got a couple more to go through here. We get it back offensively. We end up getting the field goal before half, which was huge. Big kick return set that up. The big shot to Kali Freeman as well. Offensively, then we end up stalling out again. After moving the ball, we had a 5-yard run, an 8-yard run. We hit St. Brown. And then that's when things went sideways, where you swing it out to Gibbs. He bobbles it. We lose 3. Instead of 0, we lose 3. Now it's 2nd and 13, which we've already seen a couple of times. Swing it back out to Gibbs. He gets 2. 3rd and 11. And then you run a tunnel screen, which would be a first down. You get called for an eligible downfield. It was kind of set up well. Now you're backed up. It's like 3rd and 16. And then all of a sudden we're punting the football because you just check it down for a screen. So, like, we were getting out of some of those spots. That drive was ugly. That drive was really ugly. But we were moving the ball. Maybe the most disappointing thing is you had 2 runs that went pretty well on that drive up until that point where things just went sideways. And look, it's been an issue. It was an issue last week. It's always something, but like, you bobble pass it, and a couple yards does matter. And it mattered there. But in this case, now you look back and you're like, well, shoot, should we even throw in the football? If it's cleat, I'm going to crash out. Oh, you're talking about refs next week? All right, we get there. We're going to get there. We're about to wrap this thing up. I only got a couple left. We'll go back to it. So yeah, that's how that drive stalls defensively. I think we ended up defensively we ended up getting another stop here. Right? We're handling the run pretty well. Again, they get that one big pass to Theo Johnson, which was good because they picked it up the cover 4. They picked a shot play, but Reeder gets some pressure. They throw it away. They get Amik Robertson in the flat. Again, we're sitting in man, so some of this is kind of predictable. It's just spacing at this point. But then we stuff a run. We blow up the swing pass. Alex does. Alex was making some plays in this game. Now I'm looking back on this. Then we get the tip pass by Roy. We get off the field. So we buttoned up in a big spot. Offensively, we then end up throwing the interception, which we were in spot to score again. Right there, we take the lead, or we're kicking a field goal. Throw it to Saint. Hits off his hand. Throw it away from the defender. A little bit outside. Tip. Picked off. In a drive that was actually going pretty well. It was going pretty well up until the sack of KO. But up until that point, and even at that point, you're like, all right, hey, it was fourth man. We kick a field goal. Nope, now it's picked off. It's like, dude, a lot of this we're reading through it is actually not too bad. Like I'm seeing like, okay, we're kind of moving the ball pretty consistently here. And then you have a couple things that stalls you. Defensively, he's actually doing a pretty darn good job. You know, I point out a couple explosive that have made drives happen. Outside of that, it's kind of been it. And then all of a sudden, like offensively, like this is where the game was swinging, right? It's 2017. It's been ugly to this point, but man, he gets the point. Even he kicked the field goal here, you're feeling really good. And that happens. Which is why it's so great that they responded, because then defensively, you got them in a 3rd down and 3. They end up running the screen play, which Jack Campbell didn't cover it at all. And they pick up the 1st down. That keeps it alive. They get the run game going a little bit, but it was the reverse pass that pops. Jameis, I mean, I don't know what the heck that was. This dude shook Derek Barnes twice on the play. That was disgusting. I don't know what that was. That was kind of the game. That play happening means you should lose the football game. If Jameis Winston cooks your linebacker twice, you're probably losing that game. And you're like, hey, that's okay, man. Jameis got me. Like, dude, you shouldn't win that football game. So the fact they responded to that, honestly, that's a gut punch. You went about gut punches. Dan Campbell knows about gut punch. That was a gut punch. Watching Jameis Winston cook Derek Barnes was unreal. All right, so I'm just glad we came back from that. Offense responds. Again, explosives. We're creating those. Harper gets his pick. Boom, we're right back in it. Momentum shifted. Nope. 2 yard to Gibbs. All right, look, hey, not great, but at least we're going forward. Next play had to be miscommunication. Goff threw it to nobody. I got to believe it. Like when I watch it, I just got to believe these things. I don't know where he's throwing that. All right, 3rd down and 8. Not great, but we've gotten out a few of these spots. Let's throw it to JMO. He drops it. Cool. Punting the ball. Like some of these, man. And this would, I would say, this is the biggest long-term concern as we get to wrap this. The biggest long-term concern would be, to me, it's not as much to the play calling, because a lot of times when you watch it, like you're like, oh, okay, I can see why that made sense. And you're like, this could have got open. This could have hit. Like against Philly, there was a lot of those. And some of the big plays were really good scheme stuff. But it's more so the fact that we've had, it feels like, there's no number to this for me, but it feels like we've had more of that. Miscommunication. Obviously, the drop passes are more player related, but miscommunication, the depth is kind of weird here. Why do we have an ineligible man downfield on a screenplay? Why does it? There was nothing that threw off the timing. It was on time. Why do we have an ineligible man downfield? It was things like that. It's things like that we've had too much of this year. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, we got 2 guys in motion at the same time. Things like that. I mean, if there's anything that you can, and you want to point to Ben, point to it. That's like there's something a little bit off here. It's those things to me. It's the little things where it's like we're just not as buttoned up as you would expect them to be, and those little things pop up, and that gets you. And that would be the thing that I would point to there. So we'll kind of wrap it up from there, because at that point they had the weirdest drive. You know, the 30-yard pass on the 3rd down and 10 on DJ Reed. He kind of bit on the out route, and the play just keeps going. Again, you avoid a sack, turns into a broken play. Somebody's getting open deep. That's exactly what happened. Alex drops it off to chase the quarterback because they're in man, so he has to. But Harper doesn't pick it up, so now there's another big play. I mean, that's just crazy. But at very least, they stepped up in the goal line spot. Rocky Sin made the play. They passed it off well. I think they knew they were getting man because they called another timeout, and they ran crossers, and Rocky Sin dropped it off. And they picked it up. They executed there. And then offensively, a disaster. I mean, this drive was not pretty at all, but they got down the field. I mean, this thing wanted to go backward. 2nd 11 after a holding call. We got down the field, though. St. Brown, Gibbs on the run. St. Brown again underneath. Again, they're sitting in that zone. They kind of played softer there. St. Brown on the blitz, fit into a tight window. We had a really good tight window pass to him in this game. Gibbs on the angle route, and then the goofiest sequence of all time, right? After the 1st down to St., you run up to it, you spike it. Then you call a timeout because you run out of time after you spiked it, which is kind of the point of spiking the ball. Then we run out of time, so now we got to use our timeout. Then we run an angle route. They get called for a flag because the dude hits it out of our hand. Hey, we're in business here. Okay, cool. Tesla, incomplete pass. That's fine. All right, that was fine. I got some pressure. And then you throw a swing pass when they blitz. They're coming up to the line to blitz. Goff throws a swing pass. Can't do that. Lose 5 yards. Then we throw an incomplete pass to Gibbs. Now we're kicking a 60-yard field goal. So, hey, man, shout out to Jake Bates, because we've seen some bad field goals. Well, when we need it most, man, he came through. This guy came through, dude. He knocked it through from 60. It didn't look good, but he made it. And it gave us a chance. So look, man, we found a way. That's what matters. Even at the end there, they could have got. I mean, Meek gets the clutch PBU, and they get a call for a hands to face when they try to take a shot. I mean, with how the game was going, he thought, man, there's got to be a DPI coming or something. But yeah, I don't know. I think if you looked at the score, you wouldn't think that's crazy that you beat him by 7 because that's kind of how the Giants have played everybody. But it's the way that it played out, which feels messy. It's just good to know that you won that game because I hear this all the time. Like you'll never look back a couple years and be like, man, but you remember how we played that? Like, nah, you're just gonna be like, they won the game. So at this point, we're in playoff mode, man. It's just about making playoffs, get in somehow, some way, and figure it out each week because that's where we're at. We just need to get wins. We need wins at this point. We got to start stacking them up. We haven't had stacking wins since the beginning of the year, so they need to do that, and they needed this one to stay alive with the Packers because otherwise, I mean, if you lose this game, you play the Packers. If you lose the Packers, there's probably a very good chance you're missing the playoffs. Because now you're probably 2 games back. You don't have the tiebreaker on Green Bay. If Green Bay doesn't win the division, you're not jumping them in the wild card. Like your chance to make the playoffs have to go way down. So at very least, this one kind of puts you right in the mix with everybody once again, knowing that you already beat the Bears once and you got the Packers again with a shot. So gave yourself a chance, man. I'm going to end it here. What do you think? Let me read one more last one. What do you think the main reason was the defense so bad? I know they had some trick plays. Like I said, I think some of their big plays offensively was just them being smart. I don't think we disguised enough. I think we were too straightforward with our approach, and they attacked that. I think that the trick plays do matter because they were set up, but I think we were very aggressive against the run early, and it was good against the run, but it also exposed us a few times. A couple times he just got beat, but for the most part, I think it was they did some good things plan-wise defensively to what we had, but I think it was just clearly the big chunks. They had like 4 big chunk plays on stuff that weren't that deep. It was just like, all right, this is pretty straightforward, and we gave up 40 yards to it. Things like that. I think just the selling out to stop the run. Look, I mean, if we say this, in the second half, they didn't get as many of those on the early down plays where it's like, oh, we just didn't cover a flat for 40 yards. But the run game did open up a bit for them. So we felt that. At that point, it was now we're kind of isolated everywhere, and their big plays were coming from just some goofy stuff. I mean, just like heaving it up on a double move, like goofy stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. This will be one that's good to go through, but we won. We'll take it. We won, man. I'm gonna end it there. I appreciate y'all joining. We'll be back on Monday to get prepared because we got a short week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, no show on Thursday. We got Postgame Thursday, and then Sunday we'll be back with another show. So just a 3-show week this week over on Bleacher Report. So tune into those. We're gonna get prepared very quickly, and yeah, we'll get ready to roll here, man. 7-4, on to the Packers. Enjoy the rest of the football day, and we are out over here on Bleacher Report, man. YouTube, shout out to y'all for sticking in here, man. I know we didn't go through as many of the chats, but I think this is probably the better way to do it. Can't wait for the breakdown. Say the O-line is good enough. Can't wait for your all 22 look. Hey, man, I appreciate that. Who's that? Nick, shout out to Nick P, man. I felt pretty good with the O-line, dude. I think you got to put into context who you're going against. It's not like we were going against some scrubs up front. I mean, you were going against some dogs up front. So I don't know. Like, it's okay to give teams credit when they create some movement. When you have 219 rushing yards, we don't think any of that's the O-line. I mean, how many of those big runs did Gibbs get touched? I mean, you got to give him some love, dude. He had 219 yards. I mean, I'm not telling K.O. was being a dog because he wasn't, but dude, I mean, we all watched that Philly game and we all stepped back like, yo, that offensive line looks shaky. There's no doubt that if you looked at roster on paper, you would have thought we are going to look horrible against this team. And I didn't feel that way. I mean, we got beat when we were in some bad spots, but for the most part, I didn't feel like we were getting beat up front. We did what we were supposed to do. We ran all over them. Take that. I'm going to end it here, though. I'll see y'all later on YouTube, man. We're out. Check out Joseph Draft if you want some draft content.